our attitude is so important, and this study will be generally focused on attitude, but specifically it will be focused towards having the right attitude towards God. I'll start with the research from Stanford Research Institute, who reported that only 12.5% of our success in life is determined by knowledge. The other 87.5% comes from attitude. Many people think that to be successful in life, you need to be so smart, or you need to have so much knowledge, the right knowledge. But really, majority of that is attitude. So if you have the right attitude in life, your odds of being a success are really the most important. So more than skill, more than knowledge, more than aptitude, our attitude dictates our success in life. At the end of the day, if you hear everybody, all they want to be is to be a success, right? To be successful in life. And it's very important for us to focus that really what dictates our success is almost 90% depends on your attitude. So this lesson, by the way, this series, it's not about promoting a positive mental attitude approach to life, kind of like in general, but rather a balanced, informed, and godly approach to life, to really see how our right attitude towards God permeates into every other area of our life, which contributes to us being a successful person by God's definition, not by our definition, not by world's definition. But it's so important that it all begins with attitude. And I have a few passages to read in Ephesians chapter 4, and I'm going to use this microphone because now it's working. Who wants to start? We're going to start with Shante. Just read from 17 to 23. 4, please.
This I say, therefore, and testify in the Lord, that you should no longer walk as the rest of the Gentiles walk, in the futility of their mind, having their understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness of their heart, who, being past feeling, have given themselves over to lewdness, to work all uncleanliness with greediness. But you have not so learned Christ, if indeed you have heard him and have been taught by him, as the truth is in Jesus, that you put off concerning your former conduct the old man which grows corrupt according to the deceitful lusts, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and that you put on the new man which was created according to God, in true righteousness and holiness.
We're going to focus a little bit on that last part, 23, 24, and we're going to continue reading in 25 and on. The idea there is to renewed in the spirit of your mind. That is really where I take the concept of really having the right attitude, being renewed in the spirit of your mind. It's really about switching our mindset to make sure our mindset is right. And Bradley, can you please read 25 to 32?
Therefore, putting away lying, let each one of you speak truth with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your wrath, nor give place to the devil. Let him who stole steal no longer, but rather him labor, working with his hands what is good, that he may have something to give him who has need. Let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, for what is good for necessary edification, that may impart grace to the hearers. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, by whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Let all bitterness, wrath, anger, clamor, and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you.
Very good, thank you. So in these passages we've read in Ephesians 4, there's a lot here about having the right attitude, having the right mindset towards God, towards others. But I will continue at this time by defining attitude. I could ask you how you define attitude, maybe just for a minute. Anybody wants to take a stab at what is the attitude, the definition for attitude, without checking your phones, please. Please put your phone down. Who wants to give me an attitude? No. Who wants to give me a definition of the attitude? Mark? You better not have fast forwarded through my next slide. Yes.
We have kids do this all the time. And our definition of attitude in the gym is the way that you deal with situations, the way that you see things. So if you win or lose a match, you can have a good attitude or you can have a bad attitude. It literally just totally depends on you. It has nothing to do with the situation.
Very good, very good, very good. That's kind of how you see attitude, right? How you express it. But definition, who wants to take another stab at it?
It's your mindset and the way you're thinking in that moment. Your emotions and your thoughts all play into attitude. It's how you're seeing it. So if my mom comes and tells me to take out the trash, I can either be happy to say okay and go do it, or I can start arguing with her because I don't want to go do it in that second. It's all about how I'm feeling in that moment.
That's great, but you never do that, right? You never
Definitely,
argue with
no.
mom. No.
Never.
Good boy. Yes, very good. Both of those were good answers. So, and I appreciate you guys are spot on. So the definition that I liked, that I picked, is a settled way of thinking or feeling. A settled way of thinking or a feeling about someone or something, typically one that is reflected in a person's behavior. So having the right attitude is just having the right type of thinking and the right type of feelings towards a person, right? So beliefs, emotions, and behaviors towards a particular object, person, thing, or event. That is what an attitude is. So of course, Zach mentioned about having a good attitude, but it could be a bad attitude. So attitude, by definition, is just the accumulation of beliefs, emotions, behaviors towards a particular object or a person. How you come across to that person that other people just see it. Yes, sir.
It's kind of like the half glass scenario. It's either half glass empty or half glass full.
Yeah, absolutely. So very important. So a settled way of thinking, so it will really have a tremendous impact on you if your settled way of thinking is half empty, right, and very negative and very poor, as opposed to upbeat and positive and can do. That is going to take you a long way if your attitude is right. So there's several components of attitude that we need to acknowledge. First, there's a cognitive component to attitude. So this is your thoughts and your beliefs, which is very personal. The next one is the affective component, how the object, person, issue, or event make you feel. Okay, this is the second one, you see the distinction. And the third one is behavioral, how attitude influences your behavior and the behavior you express as a result of the attitude that is in your heart. Okay, so these three components are very important. Cognitive, your affect comes together and your behavior comes together really to put the seal on really your attitude, who you're going to be as you come across, as others perceive you, right? Very good. And really with that also goes awareness, because very often in my experience people have a bad attitude. And Jim, are they aware that they're having a bad attitude?
I think they are in most cases.
Most cases?
I think they are.
They're just okay with it or what?
Not on the surface though. You know, but yeah. You know when you have a bad attitude. You know.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, Rhett?
It's kind of funny, but some people don't have attitude changes, good or bad. They either generally have a positive attitude or they generally have a negative attitude.
Yeah.
And the people I deal with, it's one or the other. It's like you have to encourage them all the time.
Yes.
Whereas others, no, I can do that. I can do that.
Yeah.
They don't even have a clue what they're doing. They just, have a good attitude.
Yes.
I think we have to be careful not to mix up attitude and temperament, though, because sometimes people's temperament tends towards a certain maybe negativity or, you know what I'm saying? And then other people's temperament more easygoing, like it's just, so they can kind of get interchanged.
Right, but it contributes. Temperament obviously is a part of that, right?
Right.
That's a great comment. So how we think, how we feel, how we behave really towards others, that's attitude, but also how we behave towards God, towards His will, towards His people. That is also attitude. So considering how important our attitude is in determining success, right? We saw almost 90%. That's what I thought that is important for us to talk about it, to bring it more on the surface of our awareness so that we can analyze. You said that you know when you're having an attitude is not so good. For us to really do some soul searching to make sure that how we think, how we feel, how we behave, that's really what it is, the three components: think, feel, behave. They're all different category. Think, feel, behave towards God, towards His will, towards His people. That is really what will make you or break you. Yes, sir.
I know like Jim said that people do know when they're having a bad attitude. And I think the way that we're kind of looking at attitude, the way it's being defined, I don't know if I would always agree with that. I think that sometimes people don't realize when they're having a bad attitude. And just a simple example is people who aren't Christians. And the way they think about Christianity is, well, this is all made up. It's fairy tale, it's myth, it's not real. So how does that make them feel? Well, they don't really care. And then what do? Well, they mock Christians online. Well, they don't necessarily know that they're having a bad attitude towards God, towards His people. They don't believe that He's real. So to them, this is nothing. You guys are being foolish. You guys believe in something that doesn't even make any sense. So to them, they don't even think that it's wrong. They think that we're in the wrong.
So not a lot of people. I agree with that. A lot of people. Actually, my view on attitude is that it's kind of like bad breath. You don't know it, but everybody else does, right? Yes, Zach.
I think tone matters a lot with attitude too.
Right.
Because I have been told countless times that my tone sounds bad, but I don't mean it in a bad way. But it just sounds bad, and it makes it seem like I have a terrible attitude about it. And it just really matters to how you're feeling. Even if you're feeling bad, you really need to have a good tone, because it's going to look like you're having a bad attitude towards the person when you don't mean it like that. That's just how you said it. Right.
So that's very important. He touches on something very important, because tone is the biggest part in communication, right? So you have words, and you have tone, and you have body language. And the biggest one is which one? It's tone. I believe it's tone. It's not body language. It's tone. I think it's 30-something%, right? Isn't it? 30-something%?
The words you say.
The words is 7. I know that for a fact.
Your tone and your behavior may not be aligned with your words.
Right.
You may be saying something what you want
Right.
to hear, but your tone, your behavior is the opposite.
Right. So definitely, and I'm gonna go to Shante in just a minute. So I wanted to just expand a little bit on tone, because it's true. You can say the right words, but if you're not really controlling your tone, you absolutely can come across that you have a bad attitude. So tone is super, super important. And just like Tracy said, if somebody hears the right words but hears the wrong tone, they're gonna believe the tone, because that weighs more than the words in communication. So super important. So you see, in the study today, I hope that we can just make us more aware of how we come across, whether it's verbally, body language, tone, in every way, in our interaction with others, in our interaction with God, to make sure that we are perceived that we have the right attitude, right? Because I'll tell you a few things in life, in our interaction with others, matter more than attitude. At the end of the day, whoever you interact with, if they repeatedly having a bad attitude, what are you gonna do? I mean, we can marginalize those people, don't answer their phone calls. Like, why would I want to? They call you, they're always having a bad attitude. Why would in the world would I answer the phone? Or, right? So, Shante.
I always go back to the story that I had where when I think it was middle school.
Yeah.
Maybe it was high school. I was on the softball team, and then I feel attitude is all about perception too. And so I was hanging out with the girls in the softball team. And then my mom noticed that I was giving a lot more attitude, and so she, that was
Sorry.
great. She was like, if you are showing me attitude, like it seems like you're getting this from your softball team, and if I see more of this, I'm pulling you out. And that was a moment where I didn't realize that was happening, that I was giving that kind of attitude. And I think it really depends on who you're surrounding yourself with, because around those other girls, like on the team, that was just
That's
like
the
the
normal.
norm. And so you don't see anything as bad.
Right.
But then outside of that, when you're in a different place and they're like, you're giving off these wrong or the wrong attitude here, like I can
Right.
see that it's coming from over there, that influence. That's when it took me a minute to realize, like, oh wow, I had to actively then go into that softball team and try
Yeah.
not to be like them there and at home.
Kind of
And so
intentional,
I do think it has a lot to do with perception, and then people having to tell you sometimes, hey, you're giving a bad attitude, and oh, I am? Like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. And then after that, then you have to make sure that you're actively not purposely giving a bad attitude.
Yeah. And you have to be very aware of how you come across. It takes a certain level of awareness. That's a very good example, sir.
I just wanted to bring it back to what you've been saying, kind of with these whole lessons. The average of the 5 people you hang out with, I mean, that's
That's who you
exactly
become.
it. It's like who you hang out with
Yeah.
is who you are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, bringing this back to, God and Christianity, if we allow ourselves to be in the world,
Yes.
we are going to go back to the world, in action, in thought, in attitude.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know we're going to focus on, how we think, feel, and behave towards God.
Right.
So I do want to bring it back to that, because this is where we can
Yes.
readjust, realign,
Yeah.
but coming here once a week is not enough to
Right.
keep us on the path. We have to
Right.
really be connected with
Right.
God enough that the world is a blur
Yeah.
and our focus is on
Yeah,
Christ.
yeah. Absolutely. So, very, very important. So, as you mentioned, this study certainly is not just towards our attitude towards one another, repulsive as it is to give each other a bad attitude. Imagine how it is if we give God bad attitude. I mean, imagine how a parent feels when their kid gives them a bad attitude, and then take that to a whole new level, how we treat and what our demeanor is towards God, right? And how God may feel when he sees our attitude. So, very good. Let me see what else I got next. So next I have the value and in the importance of godliness when it comes to attitude. Often it is compared to like having mindset or a disposition or certain perspective. But in the spiritual sense and in biblical sense, more biblical terms for attitude is mind, spirit, godliness. So the same way that the world thinks, okay, attitude is mindset, disposition, perspective, all of them are kind of synonyms for attitude. The Bible talks about attitude a lot when the Bible talks about mind, spirit, godliness. So, and we're going to see a few of those passages, but it is very important for us to acknowledge that in our success, attitude is so important that we find it so much in the Bible. It's just that it's not called attitude, right? Back in the days, it was called, instead of having a bad attitude, back in the biblical times, it's talking about having a bad spirit, right? It makes sense, right? Or a bad mind, or a bad, right? You don't have the word attitude like that mentioned in the Bible. So mind, the word that oftentimes the Bible describes as, I believe, is what we understand as attitude. It's a derivative, I'm not going to read it there in Greek, but it's a derivative of the base thoughtful planning, to employ one's faculty for thoughtful planning with emphasis upon the underlying disposition or attitude, to have an attitude to think in a particular matter, right? So how often the Bible talks about having the right mindset, right? Many times taking the right mind, to have the mind of Christ, That really means have the same attitude Jesus was having. But
Doesn't it go along with like the heart as well, the mind, the heart?
yeah, yes, and we're gonna touch on that in a little bit too. So again, I'm just creating the groundwork here for us to understand that oftentimes in the Bible, when you read about mind, you talk about really about attitude. It's a way of thinking. It's a disposition of your attitude. Philippians chapter 2, we see it in Philippians chapter 2 and many other places. But if I can have a volunteer read Philippians 2 verses 2 to 5. Who wants to read this? Oh, actually, yes. Luke, go ahead.
Fulfill my joy by being like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for his own interests, but also for the interests of others. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus.
Did you count how many times the word mind comes there? And if you change the word attitude with mind there, you get the picture, right? Fulfill my joy, being like-minded, in other words, having the same attitude, same love, that's really attitude, one accord. And then he talks about in lowliness of attitude. Have an attitude that is, don't put yourself, right? That's an attitude. Yes, sir.
When you talk about it, it's almost like being puffed up or pride. Mm-hmm. And so when it says lowliness of attitude or lowliness of mind, mm-hmm. it's all about how we're perceiving one another.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter where your station is in life. Mm-hmm. We're all just human beings.
Yeah.
We're not any better than the person next to us or any worse.
Right.
But our attitude, our mindset is going to dictate the direction for which we're, And so it's really not only important, but when you mention that, let this attitude be in you. Let this attitude, just change that word, and you're right.
It
seems to be kind of a proactive, help.
Right. Right. So also I want to mention also that oftentimes when somebody has a bad attitude, really it's something about the way they're coming across that is maybe loud, maybe obnoxious, maybe above, kind of over, right? Somebody has the opposite there is having a low kind of way of expressing, not low in a bad way, but low in a sense of calm and kind of more humble, more, right? Makes sense. That person will be acknowledged having a good attitude, as opposed to somebody always talking, always loud, always needy, always, right? So the attitude here that we see, if we replace the word mind with attitude, it continues. It continues. Says, each one of you look not only for his own interest, but interest of others, and let this attitude be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. This is the attitude that we have to take, right? Lower, not obnoxious. Love is the word there, with one accord, be kind of even key. Another passage is in Romans chapter 2. Again, replace the word mind in your mind with the word attitude as you read this. Chapter 12, verse 2. Volunteer, please, somebody. Aaron?
And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God.
You see, if you change the word mind there with attitude, renew your attitude. Renew your attitude. And your attitude should be what? Well, prove that which is good and acceptable, perfect will of God. It goes to the Word of God. So kind of set your attitude on the Word of God, on the will of God. Rhett?
Every so often, whenever you're having a discussion with your kids, sometimes we say, you better change your attitude. Well, that's that whole idea of renewing it.
Yeah.
Stop and think, can I approach this a better way?
Yes.
Usually, when you renew your attitude, you're going to get better results anyway.
Right. Not to mention that really it will lead you to success, because close to 90% of it leads to success if it's positive, as opposed to if it's poor, you're not going to achieve your goals, really. I mean, you want to get a job, you want to be successful, you want to interact with a customer. I mean, go ahead, Rhett, or anybody that is in business, go meet with a customer and give him a bad attitude. You're not going to get that business. Or that person's going to say, who is that? I don't want to talk with this person. I'm not going to call him again. I'm not going to answer his phone. People don't normally want to be close to people with a bad attitude. Somebody pass his microphone to?
Short comment. I just wanted to, it made me think whenever you're searching for something in the internet and you want to refresh to restart the search. Yes. It's kind of like if you feel like you're doing in the wrong, just like refresh, clear your mind, start over.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's true that really we are so much in charge of how we come across. If we charge what we say with a good attitude or with a bad attitude, right? And we should be able to have the wisdom to really distinguish and be intentional and think about it before we say it, right? As you know, I've been spending some time in business and in every space, what I need help with ChatGPT, you know that, I'm sure you have too. But it's amazing because you can ask ChatGPT to say something, to formulate an email, for instance. I was helping Lisa yesterday with a letter to a customer that we just fired because they upset Lisa. I was like, okay, if you upset Lisa, you fire. And Lisa was agonizing over an email to this person. I said, honey, just put it in ChatGPT, tell her what you want to say, and just say, and then he'll give you an email, say shorter, bigger. And then the greatest things about ChatGPT, you can say, put more positive energy, put more negative energy, put more attitude, put less attitude. Don't come so hard, come softer, change your tone, make the tone friendlier, make it a little bit stronger. And it's just amazing how he does it. He just uses different words to just add more emotion or to add more strength of coming across stronger, as opposed to you ask it to come a little bit lower and it's just going to make it friendlier and you fire the person with a smile on your face, kind of, right? But you don't have to do it in a bad way. You can do it in a positive way, even though you're still going to achieve your goal. The biggest sin, I believe, is that people simply don't care so much as to how they come across, and it's so much about themselves, and they don't think about how I am going to come across. And then they don't really think about it a whole lot. It goes along with having a pretty poor or low emotional intelligence. It's huge to really acknowledge and be aware how you come across, how others perceive you, because really at the end of the day, you can control how others feel about you by the type of tone that you're going to have, by the choice of words that you're going to use. And I will end by saying this, that you have so much control over how you communicate with others as to how they perceive you. It's just that we have to be more aware and more intentional to choose our words more carefully, so that when we speak and Jesus says, make sure your words are what? Dressed with salt. Don't just say any which words. I mean, look at Jesus, the way he spoke. Nobody spoke like him. And if he spoke like that, and if we are his disciples, I mean, wouldn't it be great if people know us as speaking with power, right? Because we are his disciples. I mean, his disciples were acknowledged to be his disciples. Why? Because they were talking like Jesus. Like, by the way they talk, we know that they have been with Jesus. We should be the same. So we should also adopt that attitude and make it to be more like Jesus' attitude, and just be aware that whatever we choose, really, whatever we, maybe choose not the right word, whatever we seek, right, to achieve when we communicate with others, we have a lot of control to what we get back in ways of how we ask for things. So, and really the reason why that leads to success is because choosing the right attitude, but the right way to talk, the right words to use, the right tone to use, then what happens? You gain the you gain the favor of the people around you. I mean, I'm taking Zach, for example, the example with, his mom says, hey, can you please take the garbage out? And he says, sure, Mom, of course. I'm sorry I didn't see it already. I'll be happy to do it. And Aaron's like, what in the world? Are you my son? Yes, but you do it time after time after time, and he improves his attitude like that to the point that, all of a sudden Aaron's like, wow, he's growing so much and his attitude is so great. And but in result, what does Zach get? Zach gets the favor of his mom. Zach now is a wonderful child. And then one day when Zach goes to mom and say, Mom, can you help me with something? Can you help me buy something or whatever? Is mom going to be more likely or less likely to say, sure, my son, of course? She'll still say no. I'm glad we having the study on attitude, okay? And I'm glad, Jim, you're keeping them here.
Is my answer of okay good enough for doing the trash?
Son, let me tell you something. So it's just that in the becoming of a person, we all have such a long way to go from point A where we are to the point where our answer, it is just perfect every single time. We have a long ways to go. None of us really master that, but there's a way, and I'm not just going to tell you now the specific mechanics and the tactics on what exactly words to say, but the more that you are intentional of seeking the right words, injecting the right tone in every interaction that you have with your mom and with your dad, and obviously, of course, it starts at home. Because if you have the right attitude at home, you're going to have it at school. You're going to have it in the community. So I'm saying that if you pay attention to this study and you are actually acknowledge that actually there's better ways that we can communicate as to there is such a thing of us having a better attitude, no matter what attitude you have right now, then as you constantly seek for better ways to respond. Right, because it's never a right way or a wrong way. Many times people think, well, I should have said something different. Oftentimes when it comes to the way people say things, I mean, it could be here, which is bad, right? Bad way to say something. And it's a long, long range of things that is A++, right? Not A+ cabinet, just A++, wonderful way to respond, right? And this is F, right? Can we say that? Fail. So you can, Zach, to answer your question, you can have so many different approaches and you can say so many different words. Jesus always hit it here, right? But as long as you hit somewhere closer to here, sometimes you may have moments that you hit things so good that you shock your mother, right? So as long as you constantly make an improvement to say, you know what, I'm going in this direction and I'm going to learn to be closer to here, as opposed to I just don't care, that's a winning formula and you're on the right track, sir.
And I think one of the very important parts of that is caring.
Right.
You can fake it,
yes,
but it comes across as,
right,
they're just, saying what they got to say to get, whatever they want. And that is a skill that you develop as to how do I really mean it? How do I really feel? And I think that's that transforming part, and the renewing part, where if you think I can do better, you work on doing better, you will do better.
Yeah. For sure, and I like you saying that, the fact that you've got to want to, and it's sad that indeed many people just don't want to. And this is not just in the world, it's even in the church. And it's sad finding even sometimes in people that, children for instance, you say, boy, children should want to give us good attitude, but what it has to do with, I believe it has to do with maturity. I mean, in my life with my children, what I found is really a matter of maturity, a matter of Of course the kid thinks they care about their mom. I mean, can somebody raise your hand if you don't care about your mom? Of course you do. But your mind, it's not developed to the extent, and I'm talking to parents now, and this is a aha moment for me in my parenting, I'll tell you, because oftentimes my kids, just like any kids, sometimes give parents a bad attitude. Yes, my kids are not perfect all the time. They're perfect 99% of the time. But no, sometimes all kids are not perfect. And I'll tell you about what it is, what I found is that it's not, they don't do it intentionally because I'm going to just be mean to my parent. They do it out of carelessness, and often because they just are too green in the head and they are not really thinking as they should, right? They're not having that depth of thought to really think before they speak and consider how are my words going to affect my mother, the person that I should respect the most in this world. How can I tell my mother such a careless word? In the moment you don't. And maybe it has to do with, Chantel, what you mentioned, because if you talk with your girlfriends and that's kind of the spirit, and you can talk to them however which way and everything is perfectly fine, well, you can't talk like that to your mom, right? Like sometimes my son comes to my mom and says, bruh, and my mom's like, I'm not your bruh, okay? I'm your mother. But hey, you know what? It's not in the world to call somebody bruh. It's like call somebody a brother. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not saying to put him on the spot. It's just common in our day and age. I mean, I'll tell you, to me, it used to bug me even when kids use this jargon, or they text me and they give me an acronym. It's like, what in the world is that? Respond, say yes, no. Or, but you have to understand that it's just, that's part of their growth, part of their development. And the good news is that as you are a parent, and Aaron and everybody here that is a parent, I know you acknowledge that as your kids mature, you do see an improvement. Ever so gradual, ever so small. Sometimes it's like it takes forever. But it is an improvement. And as we continue to be patient, and with a lot of prayer, and with a lot of help from God, they will, Lord willing, come to the point that they will be mature in their understanding. And we're going to talk more about that. Yes, hands up everywhere, yes.
So if I say, okay, Mom, is that like a B?
Okay, Mom. It has to do with your tone. It has to do with your tone.
Okay, Mom, what's that?
Then facial expression too, like smile and stuff. Yes.
Okay, then what is it?
Okay, Mom. Yes, you get somewhere. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the key. Okay, Mom, accompanied with action.
Yeah, love it.
Like this morning, I said, his shoes were in the living room, in the middle of the floor. I said, can you please move your shoes? And he sat there. And after a couple minutes, I'm like, did you actually hear me? Like, you know? And then he got up to move his shoes.
Yeah. Just a little
right?
delay.
So different.
See an excuse.
Yes.
I said, Mom, the cat likes my shoes. And she said, Zach, I said yes. And I responded. She said, why didn't you do it? Because the cat's like this.
Right. So to Zach's response, his response is not like it's not unusual, atypical for a kid. It's just that their mind operate a little bit different. And I'll tell you, it is just that I call it just green. Okay, just green, and they don't have the same faculties as an adult to really what the mother is really saying in that moment is, Zach, I want you to stop whatever you're doing, and I want you to do it right now. But it doesn't matter. It's true. It doesn't matter. But you see, it takes a while for the child to really connect and say, as you translate and as in your head, that's what you do with your head. You hear really impulses, and then you translate. One of the things that there was a study done actually, and I don't know if you read it too, but it says something talk about AI, right? Because in the world of AI, and I'm not talking just ChatGPT, in the world of AI, when it comes to communication, obviously communication is so much more than words, right? And I'll tell you, as a human, it's so easy for humans to really default on words as if that is really so important in communication, but it's not. It's only 7%. And AI, determined that actually communicating verbally, it's not the most effective way to communicate. It's like, what? Like, wipe every communication. And how else are you going to communicate? Good question. So, because I'll tell you, at the end of the day, not just between kids and parents, even among adults, the problems that people have is because of communication. And they think that somehow you know the words, you know the language. Let's communicate. Why don't you understand what I'm trying to say? What did I say? It's not how you say it. It's not what you said, how you say it. It's like, what? How did I say it? Totally oblivious. Totally didn't mean it. But you can say it because you don't have the awareness and the development. And I'll tell you, it doesn't come organically. You have to learn this. You have to read books. The more you read about, there's so many books. When I was growing up and I was young and green, there weren't such books as emotional intelligence. I never heard of it until just a couple of years ago. And now you can read books on emotional intelligence. It tells you how to be aware of how others perceive you. It wasn't until I had a job one day and they sent me to a training session and they told me, you know what? You are responsible not just of what you say, but how others feel about what you say. It's like, what? And it never crossed my mind before. It's like, it makes perfect sense. Why didn't I know this sooner? Yes, Karen?
Attunement.
Attunement? Expand on that. That's a new word.
It's a very common word for just cognitive behavior, just being attuned.
Attuned to really.
To being aware
Yes.
of our thoughts, our intentions,
Yes.
which comes out as
Yes.
can
Attunement.
on how we're perceiving.
New word for today,
Thank you.
everybody. Zach, everyone. Attunement. Isn't that a great word? I'm going to ask you to spell it next Wednesday, okay? Attunement. Attune, I think it has to do with attune. It starts with an A? A-T what? Tune? Like that? Attune, attune. Hey, that's a new word for me. Attune. I know the word to be in tune, kind of, but a very important word, yes. So if you become attuned with what your mother is saying you and you truly care and you truly translate your mom's message beyond the words. Your mom doesn't have to tell you to say it to you in a million words, in a long half a page. Do this and don't do that and do it right now and don't hesitate and say the right things and don't. Then you are in tune. So great word to focus on. Mark?
The one quote I've heard more than any quote on the planet.
Quote.
Is people don't remember what you said, they remember how you made them feel. Long story short, that's all it is. Tracy tells you.
Yeah.
Dude, why would
What'd he say?
What say? Yeah. So people don't remember what you say, is about how to make them feel. Yes, because it's all about how. That's really what you don't forget.
That's the problem that I have.
With who?
Everyone.
With everyone? Well, but then what do? You get better. You learn. So very important. We see. I'm glad that we're having this discussion, sir. Yes. Last word is 10:45. Go ahead.
I was just wanting to say kind of what everyone said. It's whenever someone's asking you or you're communicating, it's that intentional mindset to focus to please the other person, which is what we go back to with the 87.5% of success is attitude. Is you're thinking of the other person, like we're supposed to put God first, others second, self last. Whenever we're communicating with anyone in any type of circumstances or situation, it's the mental capacity of thinking the words that I'm about to say, how is this going to come across to the other person and how they will perceive it?
Yeah.
So it's putting the other person first. How do I help you? Not how I help myself. It's very natural for the flesh to be, it's all about me, it's all about me. I mean, examples with not moving the shoes or not taking out the trash. It's not what you want. It's what I want to do. I don't feel like doing that right now. I'll do it later. But that's a lifelong journey. The flesh will continually pull us in the other direction. So it's placing our mindset, transforming our mind, following God. If we do the right things, He will help transform us, but we have to do our part.
We have to do our part, and intentionally we have to accept that there is a better tomorrow for us. Whatever your skill set is right now, whatever your intelligence is when it comes in this space of emotional intelligence, you have to tell yourself, I can do better. And you can do better. And I'll tell you the extent to which you can do better, your relationships will be better, Your wife and your husband will enjoy your presence more, and then you will grow more as a person. You'll be much more pleasant person to be around, and your breath won't stink so much.
People love to be
Right.
flattered and
Yes,
positive
yes,
feedback.
yes. And people like to be around those people, and that's why it's going to lead to you being more successful, because more people are going to be with you, do business with you, and so forth.
I love your statistics.
We will, now my statistics stand for it. So anyways, thank you for your attention. We will take a break now. We'll continue this study on Wednesday. Thank you.